Okay, turn 32, and this will be pretty quick. The first thing is we have talked to Naba because we might be getting involved with or against Calum. Either way, it's worth getting in touch with Naba, and we were able to secure ourselves some earth boots. The reason we did this is so we can use our E1s to then duplicate these earth boots. So we've got E1 access here, E1 access through the Magi as soon as the Palisade. Well, Palisade will let us produce more of them quickly, but that'll give us an E1, and some slave mages or E1s that can wear boots if they're on land, just not when they're in water, because they have a fin while they are in water, they have legs while they are on land, and you need apparently legs to wear boots. Makes sense to me. So we bought that, and that'll let us duplicate those. Between that and having a thistle mace, we'll be able to replicate the basic boosters in Earth and Nature, which will get us a fair way. The fact that we have naiads makes that like trivial at this point. Construction 6 is done. So Lightless Lantern construction is now enabled. We'll be finishing our first Magus next turn, and then we'll produce more and more Magi, and this will allow us to start producing the best research booster in the game, which is the Lightless Lantern. Lightless Lantern is really a game-defining item. I can't show it to you until next turn because I don't have anyone with the paths to show it, but there we go. But it's the research booster that I rely on in most of my games. I really I value a nation having access to lanterns. Because it means that Construction 6 is inevitably going to be a boon for your research. We're then going Thaum 3 because we need teleport, just to be able to move our big astral mages around. That's important for some of the campaigns I'm planning, particularly if I do end up fighting either Calum or Omor. Probably Calum, but we'll see. And we're also monitoring their movements very closely. We found some magic sites, that is Astral and is Submerged Catacombs. Death, great. Okay, so up to 3 death gems per turn, it's something, and 11 astral. You can see my gem income there to give you an idea of where I'm at. It's turn 32. That's my gem income. I think that's a pretty good haul for turn 32. That's 11, 22, 32, 41, 48, 56. Not bad. Not bad at all. Started Assassinating Independence. Bunch of unexpected events. Minus Dominion. Plus tax, which is good. That's a good event. That gives us some gold. Large scale attack coming in here. So this just means that we're going to have to keep this force that cleared this province in place a little while longer. Because if knights attack the province, I'm hoping that what I've got here, which is 28 meteorite guardsmen, should be enough to see it off as we continue searching. Death gems plus 5, always happy, and 350 gold, 4 gems, and a girdle of might. Happy with that. Now, over here. We saw signs of Nabar trying to counterattack into Calum. Now, Nabar is trying at this point to raid Marignan. They're trying to fight off Ind. They're dealing with the fact that Shinayama has this fortress here at 10 Vira under siege, but they're still fighting. And this gives us an idea of what they're fighting with. So, this is a Nabar army. I'm focusing on Nabar because most people will still not be very familiar with Nabar. Most people will not have played a game with Nabar and Ind in it yet. They haven't been out that long, so it's still worth thinking about the strategy. These people are using 8-eyed elite soldiers who are non-glamoured Avim, size 3, 15 prot, 13, 15 frontline troops. Just solid. For 25 hit points, you're getting a lot of value with this unit. It hits super hard. It's capable of defending itself even when it's only 2 to a square. The protection value is okay. 25 hit points is good value for what you pay for it. And then there's a couple of these, where are they? Jan Emirs, which are commanders of the elite type, protected by Jan Guard, who are the sacred Arvim-sized giants. So half-breed descendants of the Jinum and the Ubar. So they're part Avim, part Jinum. They are glamour, they are iron vulnerable, but iron vulnerable 1 isn't really a serious problem. But they're sacred, bodyguard, fire resistant. These are good units. The glamour on giants is just really, really cool. And then I think the key I wanted to draw attention to was there's lots and lots of these camel riders. And the reason to use these camel riders is not because the camel rider is itself very good. 12 hit points, 15 defense, 2 attacks, it's okay. But one of those attacks is a composite bow. The reason I think a lot of people are using them is because they free spawn falcons at the start of every battle. And what falcons do, with 16 defense and only 2 hit points, but 16 defense to dodge a few shots, is they jump back on your enemy in round 1. They're completely throwaway. They don't count as many hit points lost because they only have 2 hit points, so each one dying doesn't really matter. And they just jump on your enemy in turn 1 and cause problems. What's this? Oh, a hin. I haven't seen one of these before, so what do we got? Unseen. Invisible until wounded. Okay. I'm not sure what's really going on with that guy, but I'll look those up later because that seems interesting. And then there's some hermits here, which are basic casters in here. So there's a couple of mages, line of infantry, line of bow camel riders, and some flyers facing off against the Calian army. Now, Calian army has a mixture of archers, ice guardsmen who are rocking 18 protection in this environment, but still only 13 damage with the lance most of the time. A couple of Yazads, who are these are the same as the Huakas if you're playing Nazca. One second. They've got good stats, they have ore, they are sacred, they have a high damage magical attack, and they're storm immune. They're good units if you've got decent numbers of them. They're supported by a High Seraph, which is an F4 mage, which is extremely formidable. F4 is a really good combat path, and they've got an Astral 3 High Seraphine. So this has got good mage support. However, they have a lumber construct. So lumber constructs are usually given to people by event, although you can create them. And it is a requirement, it is a meme in Dominions, that if you get a lumber construct, you are required to thug the lumber construct. This is not because it is effective, this is not because it will achieve anything, this is because it is a meme and you're required to do it. Calum has not thugged their lumber construct. And because they have not thugged their lumber construct, they are doomed to failure, as we will now see. So initial arrow exchange, not many people dying. These guys come down and just start harassing the birds. Mostly they prevent the ice guards from jumping. We've got a couple of air elementals coming down, ironically from the giants rather than from the air mages. But there's just not many. There's not many air gems available at this point. I think there's 3 astral pearls and there was 1 air gem on offer. Let me just check that. Oh, I can't find the mage. Anyway, those birds are still just dying now. And by the time the birds finally jump, the giants have crossed most of the field. Which is pretty impressive. Oh, and I didn't notice this guy before. He's just a Fire 3 Jinn. Fire 3 Air 2 Jinn, which is a cool unit. You can thug those guys pretty well. Anyway, put this on forward. Once you have birds fighting against giants in close combat, the birds only get 2 per square, but they are in every way inferior, except for protection. They have 3 extra protection points, but they do 12 piercing damage versus this guy's doing 19. Most of them are doing 23. And they're doing 23 with solid stats. So these 8ites will cut the birds apart in close combat, even in this cold environment. Birds really need that lance. The Jinn is on advance and cast spells, it looks like. So he's going to throw another spell here, probably a fireball. Yep. Threw it at the Yazards, which is actually a decent use of the spell. The Jun Guards are blessed up, so they've got reinvigoration. It's not a very strong bless, but it just prevents them fatigue out. Not that that was really a danger in this sort of battle. It's more of a mage bless, really. And the Giants just cut through everything. The Lumber Construct, who is sitting here probably on Guard Commander, just sits here till the end and is eventually cut down by Camel Riders. RIP. So, in that battle, a relatively involved and expensive Calian army went up against a army of Naba, and to be honest, it got wrecked. Like 25 archers, 11 storm guards, who are not nothing. So each storm guard is half of an 8-ite elite soldier in terms of value. Spyhorn archers are a third, Iceclads are a half. The Hobo crossbows aren't particularly valuable, but they're cool units. Get them if you can. And the Yazards are actually summons. So, this hurts. The loss of a High Seraphine is really bad. Because, like, I believe those are hero spawn units. Do they get them? Let's just check. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the High Seraphines are multi-hero units. So, rip that unit. Anyway, so Naba just tore Calum a new one, and this confirms that Calum is probably not going to be super strong, because that's a Calian field army gone. Which is really handy if we intend to fight Calum. Hopefully that won't be all of Calum's strength gone, because we want them to be able to somewhat resist the zombies. We don't want the zombies to get really out of hand, but watching this makes me think, oh, maybe Calum, despite being quite large, is not all it's cracked up to be. So we'll keep redeploying our forces. We'll try and concentrate along here. We'll have to placate Ctis, who might worry that we're coming after their throne, which we're not. We would have liked to get it, but at the end of the day, they got it. They put a big army here, because they just took Asphodel, which is here. They took that capital, and they came across, and they took the throne. And with Asphodel as a centre of operations for them, so there'll be a big Ctis fort right here. And they took it so quickly, there's probably still population there. That will probably serve as their base of operation for this area, although I expect them to fort this one as well. Neither of them will have great resources, but, you know, Ctis doesn't always need to get troops from every fort, right? And they have access to low resource troops if they need them. Ctis can always produce... what do you call them? Slave warriors if you need them, which are only 3 resources, and you only pay 9 resource for this elite warrior, and the elite warrior is pretty damn good, so you could produce some of them, or if you're desperate you can produce slave warriors. He's shown a preference so far towards Falchineers, which are much higher resource units, as well as Sobek warriors, and a small number of Sobek Sacred Guard, who are very high resource in both cases. 31 resources is a lot to pay, even for a size 3, so he won't be getting those out of this area. And what that means is if I fight this area at any point, and he hasn't artificially brought an army down for garrison purposes, which I don't expect him to do if he's going to go fight Ind, is that anything I fight here will probably be lightly armoured, by virtue of the geography of this area and the limited supply of resources. I think that's all I wanted to say this turn. What I'll be doing is I'll be moving in and clearing off these Vine Men off Xibalba, because I want to get in there and take Xibalba now that I'm entitled to it relatively quickly, and that'll complete this enclave down here. Then I need to start producing lightless lanterns and shipping them to Ermel as part of my agreement, and some other Construction 6 items that I promised. At the same time, I'm going to try and get some Construction 6 items to Calum that might help them defend against Ermel. We'll see. They might need boosters, so I'll be in contact with them and we'll go from there. It'll just depend on what I can produce for them relative to when they need them. So that's turn 32. I'll be back in turn 30. Okay, turn 33. Ermor is buying some water boosters, and I'm making a considerable profit. I've got Thaum 3. I'm going to Alt 6. We'll talk about that later. So Ermor claimed Throne of Fire, and Ctis claimed the Crystal Throne. Okay, so this is the Crystal Throne. I expect this is probably the Crystal Throne, which means that he has access to Earth Astral. Okay, and Ermor has access to the Throne of Fire, which gives him access to Fire 3s. So what he'll probably want to do then is get a Crystal Matrix and get these guys wired in with maybe 2 Dusk Elders, and you can do some very cool stuff there. Heck, you can do some very cool stuff here just without it wired into a communion at all. You can get to Fire 4 with Phoenix Power, and Fire 4 is enough to do most of the Fire Evocation or Fire Battlefield Enchantment stuff that you might want to do. So this is a good mage to have access to. I value these adepts, and at 150 gold they're good value for what they are. They're slow to recruit, they're not good researchers, but Fire 3 standalone on the cheap, I'll take it any day of the week. And as a bonus, Ermor has just added 3 attack to their Sacreds, which they really didn't need. Meanwhile, Ctis has got bonus order, a couple of Blood Slaves, but not many. A flat Blood Slave income is not great. It can very slowly break you into blood, but in general a slave is worth much less than a gem. The Crystal Mage, however, is very good. 165 for a 4-path mage, and that path being Earth Astral Cross Path. Perfect. These guys can forge Crystal Gear, these guys can Communion and do big Earth, big Astral. They're great. Great. Love them. And if he takes the Throne of Air off Ind, he'll get access to these Air 2s. So that is unfortunate across the board. To add to that, we didn't find any magic sites during our searches. Xibalba has announced a new prophet. We cleared off the independence off Xibalba, so that'll now, I think we've now breached it. Yes, we have, because the fort was already breached by the independents, so we can now assault that, take it from Ermor, which doesn't have anything inside, I believe, and that'll be the completion of our deal, and that will be a nice big boost to our economy in exchange for us giving the zombies lots of nice stuff. Those will be lanterns, boosters, and also some gems. He's also asked for some gold, but I'm resisting giving him gold at the moment, because gold, if I'm going to be giving Ermor some research help, then the one thing that is still holding Ermor back will be gold. and I don't want to hand him that. Like there's limits on how far I'll deal with Stalin in that respect. Or am I Stalin in this Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact? Who knows? Anyway, there was also a battle between Naba and Kalem, which is another Kalian army once again running into this force of Naba. And once again, the results were not great for Kalem. They were a little more balanced. Got to remember that each of these losses is probably worth 2 Kalians at least. And the Spyhorn archers are cheap. But there were 2 like Seraphs, and these are cheap mages, but they're still a fort turn to recruit. So I don't like losing them. They're worth more than 45 gold. They're worth fort turns, and fort turns are worth more than gold any point that you're doing decently in the game. And, just losing archers and stuff is not great. Also, losing territory. So, Naba moved back and took this province. So Nabar's front line with Kalem is actually this weird salient that runs in through here, and the border is here. Nabar's dominion obviously hides province ownership unless you have a scout in the province to verify. We have a scout here, and these don't have Nabar's dominion, so we can see them. These guys have Nabar's dominion, so we don't know who owns them. We know the independents own this one because we have a scout there. So it looks like Nabar's holding their own. Like they've been sort of cleared out of Marignan, and I'm not sure how they're going versus Ind, but they're holding their own versus Kalem. So we'll see how that progresses there. Unexpected events, gems, and a little bit of gold, but mostly gems. Nothing. Ooh, Windmaster. Okay, so Windmaster, that is an heir 2. So he will definitely search, just in case there's probably an air site here. The event seems to be correlated with air sites, although I have no proof of that. One day I should go diving in the mod inspector, but just my instinct seems to be that when this event fires, it tends to be because there's a site there. So we now have access to this air 2. Can you do much with air 2? Not really. Not really. He can cloud trapeze. He's mobile, but he'll need boosting if he's going to get up there towards making like the air booster or anything like that. Now, one thing I can do, which I'm considering doing, is it's at turn 33. But I don't even need my god for this, do I? No, I don't. Okay, so what I'm considering doing at this point is if I can slap a Starshine Skullcap on one of these guys, then they're Astral 6. If I can put together a crystal coin. So to make a crystal coin, what I need to do is get one of these guys, put a Skullcap on him, put a pair of Earth Boots on him, and he can make a crystal coin. So, crystal coin onto my Astral 5, who I'm very happy to have gotten. No, I expected to have to wait for my god to get an Astral 5, but I just got one by default. So this plus crystal coin will mean Astral 7. At Astral 7, you can forge this item, the Ring of Wizardry, which is +1 magic in all paths. It is ridiculously expensive. You pay 80 pearls for it. But what this thing is I love it. I think this is an incredible item. I think it is super valuable because what it lets you do is chuck it around to various mages across your nation at various points when you just are one path short of forging that booster or casting that one-time ritual or getting that global up. When you're just one short, this thing does the job. And it sits in a miscellaneous spot which most paths don't fill both of when they're boosting. Astral will put 1 miscellaneous here, Fire puts 1 miscellaneous here. Paths like Death don't use the miscellaneous slot for their standard boosters. For them it's head and hands, so you can get 1 up on Death. It just gives you a bunch of access. You can also forge the weaker version, which is the Ring of Sorcery, which gives you +1 sorcery path. So, Blood, Death, Astral, what's the last one? Blood, Death, Astral, Nature. Which is great. That's handy too, but not useful for astral boosting because you already have crystal coin. You need to make a Ring of Wizardry anyway, so you have access to elemental boosting, which is the point. So you don't need a Ring of Sorcery to boost astral because you don't have slots, unless you have a miscellaneous 3 pretender or something like that. But it can be useful for niche cases. I prefer the Ring of Wizardry because it's more multi-purpose. So what I can do is make a Ring of Wizardry. I can use that to get these guys up to Air 3, 1 Empowerment, which would cost 45 Air Gems, not bad. Means that gives them Air 4, which means that they can create the helmet, which can get them to Air 5, and at Air 5 you can summon Air Queens. Air Queens are native Air 5. You can put a helmet and the ring on the Air Queen, and you're at Air 7. And at Air 7 you can do everything, you can do everything you ever want to do at Air 7. No reason to ever go higher. And Air 6 in combat, going to Air 7 with Storm Power, you'll never take a Ring of Wizardry into combat because you don't want to lose it, and you don't want your opponent to get access to it. Ugh. Okay. What else happened? I think that was most of what happened this turn. We're watching the Naba War. We're waiting to see if Ermor moves troops up to the border. We've seen Calum redeploy some forces out what seems to be either this way or this way, so we've got to watch to see if this army will follow it, see if this army goes south. Probably moving towards Ind, although they might wait to see a confirmation of an offensive by Ermor into Calum. Meanwhile, we're talking to Calum, and we're working out whether or not he needs items from me in order to fight Ermor more effectively. I, meanwhile, are establishing small armies that are a mixture of Meteorite Guards. I've got a couple of boosters. I'm going to start assassinating. In fact, I've pretty much finished assassinating the... I'll just do that. Bam. And this province should be cleared out like in record time. We'll storm the Xibalban fort. We'll storm Xibalba, and that should eliminate Xibalba, which will clear his dominion from all these provinces, which means we have to go on a bit of a temple building spree. I have been going on a temple building spree. So you might notice now that I have a lot more dominion than I did even 2 turns ago. My intention is for this to keep going, and especially now that the Xibalban dominion came down. The reason I didn't assault this fort for a long time is precisely because I needed Xibalba's dominion to continue to exist in these provinces until I had enough temples up there to hold it back. Now I've started to get these priests out in a couple of places, so they're preaching, trying to push dominion. I'm getting more temples up. I'm going to get a temple up on these islands to serve as a little outpost and push it here. I'm going to try and close up all this water because my dominion's really good, right? My dominion's growth 3, luck 3, magic 2, production 3. I need it everywhere, and especially I need it on my new forts in order to produce lots of meteorite guards. So I'm up to 15 temples, which puts me at dominion strength 9. If you look at the dominion score graph, you can see I was sort of ing for a while, and I'm starting to pick it up, and I expect to pick it up more now that Xibalba is not there to block. These provinces are quite weak. They're like in the balance, so if I can get some temples up here, for example, if I do put one there, for example, that'll really help get these provinces locked down as soon as possible. So that's turn 33 and my little religious economic stimulus package, plus the temples to hold back Ermor along here. Obviously, I'll temple Xibalba immediately. Like, that's going to be #1 priority. Helpful Wombat here has been usefully teleporting around. And he can go over there to create a temple. He's been teleporting around, putting up temples everywhere. And these will hopefully defend these provinces, which can produce Magi even if they don't have population, right? But I still want to be getting the income from them. Otherwise, I'm not really getting that good a deal out of this arrangement with Ermor anyway. Like, I get access to the mages, sure, but if I have to be using them to produce items for him half the time, I get no gold from the provinces. I pay the upkeep, I pay the recruitment costs, and I furnish most of the gems. Then I'm kind of getting ripped off. So I need to keep these provinces alive and healthy. If I was him, I'd want to temple all this. I'd want to kill the population of these provinces, and then I got a golden deal because I lost basically nothing from giving these provinces up except for the 5 gem income of the capital, and the 4 gem income of this province. So I gave up 9 gems, but I'm getting a free supply of items that's worth more than that. At a research level that I can't even access. So in order to make sure I'm not ripped off, I need to get my dominion on land and protecting myself here as soon as possible, and that's what I'm trying to do. It's turn 33, I'll see you in turn 34. Okay, turn 34, and we have a lot of combats after some quiet terms, so let's have a look at these combats in order. We'll look at the assassination last because it's the least interesting, but it's worth revisiting just the basics of how assassins work. I also want to do that video on assassins that I've been intended to do with Last Pretender. So that's a reminder for me. I've got to go and work out my schedule there. So, Ctis attacked this throne province. This is inside Ctis's territory. They sent a whole bunch of long dead. These are the unique Ctisian lizard long dead. Their main trait is that they have 2 attacks and hit really hard. So these are actually quite good long dead, and they have 7 protection, 12 attack skill. They hit hard, 20 piercing is nothing to sneeze at, backed up by 13 slashing. These are good solid long dead. They're backed up by a couple of Marsh Masters, all of whom are twice spawned. So he probably intends to lose these Marsh Masters. Why would you throw away Marsh Masters? Well, one, because they're twice spawned and you can salvage them, but it's 10 death gems each. It's not cheap. However, Marsh Masters cost 188 gold a year to upkeep. Their upkeep adds up quickly because you can recruit them really fast. They do lots of research. They're really good mages. The Marsh Master is a really, really good mage. If I was doing a Dominions draft game and I was handed a nation that had been made and included Marsh Masters, I would say, yeah, cool, I've done well. The problem is their upkeep can add up really, really fast. Later on, I might compare the merits of the Marsh Master to the Slave Mage of Relay, who I consider very good. Anyway, he's attacked this fort, which is defended by an Air 7, Earth 4, but admittedly diseased Titan. So if he just waited a couple more turns, this guy just would have died. But no, he jumped in. He's cast Foul Vapors. Foul Vapors will start poisoning all the units in this province. However, it won't poison the Springhawks, which have poison resistance. So Springhawks are lightning damage, magic attack, high defense, ethereal, so they negate 75% of hits, storm immune, shock and poison resistant birds, basically. Ghost lightning birds. And a couple of human defenders. The human defenders will all cark it. They will all die. It also will start to chip away at the god, unless the god does something to give himself poison resistance or the battle doesn't go long enough. There's also a griffin here. That griffin is dead. It's surrounded by long deads, so it's going to die. You can just hear the crunch as all the long dead get cut through by the Springhawks. Because they're size 2, they get 3 to a square, so they can still cut down these long dead pretty quickly. Especially supported by Icarids, who do 15 slashing damage. So when they don't do piercing, because the skeletons are pierce resistant, a 15 slash will usually kill a long dead. So you can see them cutting through. Let's see if poison damage. The god is spending air gems, I believe, in order to produce very large Phantasmal Warrior spams. Yeah, he's got some poison damage on him. He's down to 41. But I have a feeling Ctis is going to get cut through too quickly here. Oh yeah, and then the god just drops a bunch of air elementals on them, and that is all she wrote. Ouch. So this isn't really a huge loss for Ctis. It's 100 long dead, so it's 30 death gems worth of long dead. That's expensive, and 3 Marsh Masters that now are going to be white mages. So that saves the upkeep, just means he had to spend 30 death gems. So 60 death gems worth of stuff had to happen in order to not quite clear this throne. This throne can now be taken relatively easily, but you still have to kill that Titan. To be honest, I would have just, unless it was a huge hurry, I would have just waited. The Titan was diseased, the Titan was going to die eventually, so were the Griffins and everything like else, because this is surrounded by Ctisian Dominion, right? Everything in it has a chance of getting diseased every turn. It's one of the reasons why people forget this. People forget that invading Ctis is really hard in the Middle Age, because their Dominion is hostile to attackers in a way that is similar to LA Relay. It's not pop kill, but it ruins your mages and units. It ruins your mages and units. LA Relay doesn't even ruin your units, because units that go insane doesn't matter. Only mages going insane matters. This kills everyone. And if the Dominion does leak into your lands, as well as killing your mages and your units, it also significantly reduces your income as the miasma rolls out from the sacred Ctisian marshes. So I would have just left it. But that's right, that's the call they made. It isn't a huge disaster, but it's something. We cleared Xibalba, not worth seeing. There was nothing inside, so we now own Xibalba. And our intention now is to temple it, protect it, guard it, preach on it, make sure that the income from that province survives, and use it to fund all the mages that we're going to need to produce in order to make the Lightless Lands to make good on our deals. We saw this battle in Tenvir. So Tenvir was one of the research parks of Naba. So Naba early on found a sage province. Sages are super cheap, really high efficient Astral 1 researchers. They're some of the best research independents in the game. So Naba secured this fort early, got a lot of them, but unfortunately didn't include much in the way of a garrison, because I feel with a garrison this thing could have done differently. Shiniyama, meanwhile, still has the Obakamono they were using at the start of the game, because they're low resource and easy to get large numbers of. They mix them in with Long Dead Horsemen, who are going to race ahead and take the first losses, and then a very large army of Dai Bakemono archers using the 14 damage piercing longbows. They also have these 26 damage Nodachis at size 3 with 17 protection. These are really good units. The Dai Bakemono is a good unit. It's protected by Goblin Tokugawa, so the god who is geared with Sword of Swiftness and a Mangosha parrying, so 22 defense, 19 attack, 28 and 22 damage respectively. Burning Pearl to give him additional attack stats. Red Dragon Spalemail, so 21 protection. He has Death 6, he has Fear, he has Fire 4. He's geared for bear. He can thug it out really well. The GC loves a good SC or thug, and this guy's in a good position to do it. Then what else have we got? An Adventurer, got a couple of Ubers. We've got a Prophet, who is their child of Oni, who are the multi-heroes. They're okay. The Bless here, by the way, is Fire Resistance 10, Undying, plus 8, Undead Leadership 40. So really geared towards using Long Dead units and Undead in order to support the armies. Remembering, of course, that the mages will benefit from that. There's not too many Sacred Troop units that they can use that on, but it will make these... it will make their mages quite tough, because this guy can go into maximum negative. Although I don't see a way to get regen on them, so I'm not sure they can really benefit from them all the way. So I'm not sure. I might ask GC to comment later on what he's thinking with that Bless. It might just be a side effect of wanting to have really high death access on his Pretender. Should be worth noted, by the way, one of the reasons you can thug with the Bakemono Kunshu is they're immortal. It's 3-month immortality. So, oof. And then Bakemono Sorcerers are powerful single center point mages. He's got gems on them, they're twice spawned, they're replaceable if they die. Yeah, they looks like they're all twice spawned actually. So yeah, this is going to be pretty clean to the Shiniyamans, depending on what this communion here does. Okay, so they're communioned. A couple of air mages. Masters of all astral shielded. Okay, so it's his intention to thug it out. It's his intention to use a front line. They don't even appear to be communion masters. Well, that's a bit naff. You got a whole bunch of communion slaves and no masters. And then the Long Dead just come in and wreck you, mate. No, I would have communion mastered, communion slaved, one buff, and then I just would have been throwing whatever astral evocations I had available to me. That's disappointing. And these fire elementals that are being used in defense, they're not going to work great, right? Also, the Dai Bakemono have access to flaming arrows, which is pretty brutal. Oof. Okay, so 26 Long Dead Horsemen, 22 Obakemono, so, you're always going to lose units in a siege, but these are all troops that were lost. Meanwhile, 14 Sages, 2 Hermit Sages, 8 Camel Riders. This is pain to Shiniyama's army, but what Shiniyama's just gained is a good province, a Sage province, and is now sort of unlocked the door. They have to go this way, though, because of the river, but they can cut their way into Naba. They've got other forces that are based here at Vanarus, and they can recruit quite well at Vanarus, so I'm imagining a pincer movement down here to link up with Marignon, and that will limit the Naba front and allow them both to push west afterwards. That's what I would be doing in their position. And then we took Utterdeep. So this was the last Xibalban province of our frog kin. This is our force. It is a mixture of Mind Blasters and Meteorite Guards, storming this palisade. Now, they have summoned a whole bunch of junk. Sea Serpents aren't junk. These sort of summons can help you hold up walls, because they have... they can help knock down walls. They're not great at holding up walls, but they can knock down walls. 3.2 siege strength. They do a lot of... they have venomous damage, they have a lot of hit points, and they take up space, and 10 prot's not nothing. But against my units, it's just shit, right? Because I do enough damage to beat through that protection and that hit points quickly. I sent some water elementals in first, and that one's almost dead after one tangle with a water elemental. I'll let this play, but there's not much to say here. Sorry, I've had a sore throat. So I'm going to go for that water occasionally. Sending in the water elementals through the gate first is always a good idea underwater. They regenerate so well, they hit so hard. Then my troops sort of catch up and fold in around them, filling up the squares. And all of these mages, even with all of their gems, there's not really much they can do. Their prophet has his bless, but his bless isn't going to make him particularly dangerous, right? He's got blood surge, he can banish a bit, but then he just gets stabbed by meteorite guardsmen. And it's done. So with that, we lose one militia, one hybrid trooper, one meteorite guardsman, and the one shark knight that we had, and we will never have another one. They're fun, but they're just... I don't need them anymore. And we clear everything out. So with that, fully automatic grey frog communism, god of Xibalba, has been permanently vanquished. At the end, he did not rule a single province. So, turn 34, and we've just eliminated another contender. So, my rough guideline to, you know you're doing really well if you eliminate one nation every 12 turns after the expansion phase is up. So by turn 24, if you've eliminated one nation, you're doing really well. If you've eliminated a second one by turn 36, you're doing really well. We've eliminated 2 nations by turn 34, so we're on track. Now, have we partitioned both of them? Yes. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 provinces from out of R'yeh, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the water. We got a much bigger share out of Xibalba because Xibalba was much bigger. That said, we only got this land under sufferance and we had to pay through the nose for it, but we've got it. And Xibalba is already a 317 income province. Wait and see what happens once I manage to get my temples up on it and protect all of this land with my dominion. Speaking of which, now that the Xibalban dominion is gone and I need to get more temples up, which I will do, I'll upgrade these fortresses, I'll clear these, my production will come back online. All good. So I would say this is the end of the early mid-game. We've completed our second war, our second early game war. We're positioning for our third. We're making a transition into the point where we're going to have some combat researchers up. I'm going for Alt 7 at the moment. Alt 7 at the moment would give me access to things like fog warriors and whatnot, and most importantly, mass protection. This I'm going to struggle to cast, because it's only castable by using those nice little air independents I found, and then giving them crystal matrices and wiring them to my communions. But at the same time, I don't think people will expect it, so it's very useful. Mass protection will be everywhere. I will cast mass protection in every battle. It will be excellent, because having 10 nat prot plus the meteorite guard's armor pushes them well into the 20s on protection, which makes them just really hard to kill with ordinary troops. Creeping Doom's a nice backup spell for when you've only got mages handy. Marble Warriors, I don't like it. Some people love it. Like it's good. I just don't like these point area buffing spells, particularly. But I guess with Relay, when you can't use line formation, it's more helpful. Normally, it's not great. Bone Grinding we won't use. Curse of the Frog Prince is a meme spell. Like it's a type of Soul Slay, right? Like it's a type of Soul Slay. It's a magic resistance negate, 1 person, precision 100, range 25, 20 fatigue spell that if they fail them MR check, they get turned into a frog, right? Like it's just Soul Slay by another name. Except Soul Slay actually kills them rather than turns them into a frog. I prefer that. There's advantages to going to Alt 8 and getting things like Will of the Fates. What I'm considering doing instead is going Conjuration to start breaking into some other areas. So if I go Conj 6, I can get bigger and better Earth Mages. I can get Lamia Queens, which give me access to blood and a little more death. I can get Streams from Hades, which allows me to convert my water gems into non-homesick naiads who have death instead of nature, which lets me introduce big death into my communions in a big way, rather than relying on a communion and a death 1. So a Cocythiad can be death 4 with the staff without being in a communion, and that lets you turn 1 cast some of the really impressive opening spells. And with my research going up so quickly, I might have the luxury of doing that. It's just, what do I need as far as combat goes for this war? And I think what I need is, I need mass protection. I also might need to go up enchantment. And this enchantment is what you get when you're about to fight Ctis. The reason you do that is because you want enchantment 7 to get Serpent's Blessing, because without Serpent's Blessing you don't really have a counter to Foul Vapor Ctis. I mean, you can use lots of undead, but that's about it. And if you go up to 8, you get Mass Regeneration, which is another counter, and if you layer it and Serpent's Blessing on the same army, then you don't need to care about Foul Vapors. You also don't need to care about many other things. If you have Mass Protection, Mass Regeneration, and Serpent's Blessing, you have a lot of Bloody Stain power, because your troops have a lot of defense against damage. They will regenerate when they take chip damage through their protection, and they can't be poisoned to death. So there's a case to be made for Enchantment 8. There's a case to be made for Conjuration, at least Conjuration 6. I think Conjuration 6 has a really good argument for it, in general. Conj 7 has a very weak argument for it. It's not a great level. Conjuration 7 does not reward you tremendously unless you're a Death Nation and you want to start getting Immortals out. But I prefer Liches to Wraith Lords anyway, and those are in an entirely different path. It's only if you want to go to Conjuration 8 that you'll go to Conjuration 7, in most cases, in my view, because then you get access to the Elemental Royalty. You get access to one of the better, stronger remote attack spells in the game if you can cast it. You get access to Fairy Court, which I want eventually, because Fairy Court is one of the windows by which I can absolutely get high-level air access. So I could, for example, instead of boosting up and instead of bootstrapping using the Air 2 Mage, what I could do is I could use my Naiad to summon a Fairy Queen. The Fairy Queen can hold the Wizardry ring and make the helmet, and then wear the helmet and summon an Air Queen. And she can do that and skip the 45 gems worth of empowerment that you would otherwise need, because she's got the extra air level natively, and then she continues to be useful after that fact as a combat Fog Warriors caster. Like, Fairy Queens are excellent. They're well worth the nature gems, and if I go Conjuration, I will summon them, and all of a sudden people will be like, where did he get all this magic diversity from? Magic diversity is excellent as a general rule, because it lets you layer on more and more combat buffs and get access to tools you wouldn't otherwise have access to, which makes it more complicated for your enemies to predict you, makes it more complicated for your enemies to counter you. And right now, I've been one-dimensional. I've thrown Mind Blasters and people with spears and heavy armor at people and run them over. I'm going to need a different trick eventually, once people figure out how to counter what I'm doing. Calum, for example, could counter me by Thunder Striking me. Right now I don't have a counter, so I'm going to need to use Diplomacy and eventually Research in order to deal with that. Simple as that. Now, is there anything else I want to say on this turn? Fire Sword, 10 Province Income, Air Gems, fine. Construction Rituals are cheaper, so that means there's a 20% discount on all construction, so I'm going to blow a lot of water gems making bottles of living water. I'm recruiting as many of these Magi as fast as I can, and I'm putting out Palisades, and eventually I'm going to upgrade that so I can get 1 per turn. And those are going to be producing Lightless Lanterns. Those Lightless Lanterns are going to go to Ermor as I produce them, first 1 per turn, then eventually 2 per turn. We've worked out an arrangement. With that, he's given me a Dwarven Hammer, which has to be used explicitly for the purpose of forging Lightless Lanterns for him, and then once I've fulfilled the initial order, I can just keep them and use them to forge my own items. So I'm going to be using some of them, at least, to do something like this, and forge these lovely bottles of living water. That's what I was going to do. I was going to show you the Assassination. So this is what an Assassination with Relay looks like. So what happens is you get 1 Star Child, you give him a bottle of living water, you set him to fire R'yeh. You can also use Astral 1 spells, but I think the Mind Blast does perfectly well. The Water Elemental will rush towards whatever he's fighting. He'll Mind Blast it. If it has low magic resistance or you're lucky, it'll just paralyze it. This is particularly important if the enemy is a mage, for example. The paralysis is extra important. There's your War Lobster, by the way, your 20 protection War Lobster, 34 base hit points once the rider dies, like dangerous unit, but Water Elemental just don't care. Also 3 magic resistance, so Mind Blast don't care either. And Water Elemental goes nom. There we go. So he's dead. Doing exactly that will clear that province up. We'll do the same thing in order to clear the commanders out of 162 and then take it, and 178 and then take it. You can see I've already positioned these guys. They'll start their assassinations shortly. So that's turn 34. I think I'm going to keep going in this recording and jump forward to turn 35. So see you in a sec. Alright, it's turn 35, and we're starting to close out what I think is this sort of macro-y phase of the game. You can see Naba has pushed in all the way to 127 in Calum. What have we got? We got another hammer, because we're about to have a second... we've got a second mage up now, so we can give them both hammers. I just took him off for a moment, but I'll put him back in a moment. To make lightless lanterns, which is good, but our own research is also up to 1,000 per month, which is great. I made the decision to swap. I'm going to go to Conjuration 6 because I want a Cocythiad, and I might want to have access to Troll Kings as well. Then I'm going to grab Alt 7. The reason I can afford to do this is because I only need Alt 7 when I'm going into battle, right? I don't get any benefit for just having it in the background, and I don't need mass protection until I invade. So I don't need it in the next turn. I can afford to take this diversion. This still gets me Alteration 7 in 2 turns from now. I'm not going to be invading in 2 turns. I'm not positioned. So I can afford to take the diversion, take the macro pick, go to Conjuration 6. A couple of research points. Voice of Tiamat, so that found 1 air, 2, so that found 2 air income. Nice, we're up to 9 air income. Great. Enchanted Current, which I think is Astral. Yep, 2 Astral. And that was it. That's alright. That's 4 gems for the turn. Not bad. And we only spent 8 on Voice of Tiamat. So, yeah, good. A bunch of assassinations that are happening and working, so that province should be cleared relatively soon. Ctis went back in against this throne. Ctis really wants to clear this throne for some reason. His strategy this time was a whole bunch of poison slingers. So he's seen that poison sort of works against the god, so he sent them in, and then he's got this hero at the back with shock resistance 15. So his idea here is that the birds will jump on the hero. The hero will not take any damage because he is shock immune. The troops that are ahead of him will then come back and cut the birds down from behind. Meanwhile, these are probably set to fire large monsters. They're going to come in and poison the god to death. But the god's on 36 hit points. Just leave it and let him die. Like, mate. Anyway. But it's a good... Assuming you want to clear this province, it's a good strategy. Except these birds decided to attack closest instead of attack rear. What this means is the birds all jump down and murder this middle squad of slingers. The air elementals start coming down and start breaking apart the slingers. The slingers are wasting all of their slings on these poison-resistant 15 units, which is not great. He just cast Iron Bane, which I think will rust. Yep, so now all this gear is rusted. Great. Although not particularly important. And that kerfuffle with the birds has bought time for these phantasmals to come forward. And phantasmals will slaughter. They'll slaughter poison slingers in close combat. Unfortunate for them, but they won't be able to deal with ethereal, relatively high damage guys when all they have is a dagger. A dagger, no prot, horrific skills. And the armor they do have is rusted. Great. Anyway, Zeusy creates some Earth Elementals to go and reinforce his Phantasmals, and this has already turned into a bit of a disaster for Ctis. His shock-resistant hero isn't positioned. What didn't catch the attackers the way he wanted. He's starting to skelly spam now. He's got another body of twice-born Marshmasters who clearly he doesn't value the lives of. And eventually the skelly spam will work, right? Like, eventually they'll be able to produce enough skeletons to overwhelm Zeus. But in the meantime, the birds and the phantasmals are doing a pretty good job of inflicting significant attrition. And now he's firing off Blade Wind, which will do a decent job. Ctis' troops now finally go for Zeus, and Zeus runs. 70 Poison Slingers, 11 Elite Warriors, and 3 Sobek Warriors. Ouch. Like, ouch. There's no way around that. Over 2 turns, he threw away, 60 death gems, and then he added on top of that. That's a good 1,000 gold on top of that, at least in terms of troops, never mind the fort turns and logistics involved. All to take a throne that he probably could have just, because there was no Springhawk commanders, right? So if he just let these guys disease off, he could have taken the throne for literally nothing. Just would have been a couple of turns later. So I imagine he'll claim this now. We'll get to see what throne it was. Maybe he'd scouted it and he knew what throne it was somehow, and as a result he knew it was urgent. That has me worried. It might be a really important throne, but I'm not sure which of these is worth enough. I'm not sure if any of these is worth enough that I would be like, yep, I'm going to throw away those units to take it a few turns earlier. Maybe luck if he doesn't have enough luck in his... I think he's growth 3, so that doesn't really matter. Bureaucracy is funny. As a former bureaucrat, I find that funny. Anyway, so they stormed in. Marignon has a lumber construct as well, and is using that to reclaim land from barbarians. Has Marignon thugged their lumber? They have not thugged their lumber construct. Marignon, you have to thug this lumber construct completely unnecessarily, or the Dominion gods will not favour you, and they will take you down. Is he going to be able to bless his sacred cavalry before they make contact? Nope, he's going to bless his flagellants instead. He's blessed his fire resistance, blood surge 3, death explosion 6 ethereal. This is the suicide bomber bless. So this is the jihadi flagellant bless. So what happens here is so flagellants are shitty, cheap units that come with afflictions and are awful at everything. You can see this one came with afflictions and has attack skill 3, defense 1. Some of them are a little bit better, like 7-5, which is I think their default stats. No, there's swamp penalty going on there, so it's normally 8-6. Yeah, cool. They do a little bit of blunt damage. They're cheap. They recruit anywhere that has a temple. They're awful. They are god-awful religious fanatics. But these bless gives them ethereal, which makes them 4 times harder to kill with weapons. Fire resistance 15, death explosion 6. So what happens here is when they die, they explode, causing decent radius fire damage. The fire resistance then prevents that death explosion from killing other ones, because otherwise what happens is one flagellant at one end of the line dies. He blows up the person next to him, who blows up the person next to him, who blows up the person next to him, who blows up the person next to him, and your entire line evaporates as soon as someone touches your line. Fire resistance 15 stops that from happening. Blood surge plus 3 is optimistic and unnecessary. Unless he desperately wanted blood 4 in his god, I don't see a point for these guys. It much more favours his knights, because blood surge is only activated when you kill something, and trust me, these flagellants won't kill anything. Not with their weapons anyway, they'll kill everything by dying. The knights, however, would benefit greatly. If I was Marignon, I would build a bless for my Knights of the Chalice, not for my flagellants. I think flagellants are meme. I don't think flagellants are super effective. But the Suicide Bomber bless is at least one of the funniest concepts in Dominions. The other unit that's really good for suicide bombing blesses, by the way, is the spirits that some parts of Tianqi can summon that are sacred. They are 1 HP ghosts that you can summon very large numbers of in battle. If you give them a Suicide Bomber bless, they can be funny. There are better things you can do, but it's absolutely hilarious. But his knights are really good and kill all the barbarians anyway. So I just rely on knights. Knights attacked us. We had kept our meteorite guards in place. They attacked us with 20 knights. We defended with 20 meteorite guard, and we did just fine. Meteorite guard greater than knights. And then we lost some dominion, and we got unrest in Xibalba, which is not good. We'll need to patrol that down. We're getting free spawn. You get free spawn hybrids in fortresses that are on the coast that have your dominion. So once we dominion this up, there'll be reinforcements for these trips that will just add to the patrol groups. So that's fine. You can see armies are starting to move, so I'll start to cluster those down. Urmor has confirmed their intention to move troops up and fight Calum, especially now they've seen the recent victories that Naba has had. So what we will do is shuffle our troops down here, and we want to position in this area, but not on this province because it's diseased, and probably around here. Walk this army probably here, and then be able to clean the coast up a turn or two after Urmor goes in, unless Urmor gets spattered. And if Urmor gets smashed, what we then do is we reverse our armies while Calum fights just a little bit longer, and then we gut punch Urmor around here. And to do that, we'd have to start mass making bags of wine. We have the nature mages for it. We have the nature gems for it. So if we have to, what we can do is we can recruit a couple more of these good old wolf tribe shamans in order to save on using slave mages. Although it's probably still better to use slave mages because you just can't reliably get the nature random as much. But slave mages are just a better unit. I'll gush on slave mages at some point, and if I don't, comment to remind me. I think the Slave Mage is an excellent mage, and one of the things that makes the Relay series of nations outside EA great, and even in EA they are one of the few things that holds the nation together and gives it some hope. So that's turn 35. I think I'll go one more turn to finish out the year, and then I'll end this recording session. Alright, turn 36, and for once I actually won't dwell, because nothing really happened other than this. You can see this conga line of armies is moving. Armies are being built here and here, and small number of reinforcements will come down and merge here. These will eventually move there. They'll be in position. We're doing this because we saw this, and we believe from Calum that Ermor has mashed a second giant-ass army over this way too. So we'll get some of these scouts down there and have a look. So Ermor has moved some fuck-off big stacks near Calum and intends to invade them. So we're going to position near Calum. Simple as that. Nothing much else to talk to. We've upgraded this fortress to make it serviceable and be able to produce mages all the time. We're about to retake this province. All the commanders are dead, so we're just going to storm the fort there and redeploy our water bottles to help us counter Calum, which is handy. We've been producing a whole bunch of Star Children over here. These guys can grab the bottles. We have a bunch of them. None currently in the lab because they're sitting in fortresses like these, but what we can do is hand those back to the lab. And they magically teleport over here, and we can use them and deploy them, which is awesome. We produced a crystal coin, which we can then use on our Astral 5, like that, and that will give us what we need in order to produce the ring, which is amazing. Our god woke up. So the two things that I will do in this turn, because there's nothing else actually happening other than Ermor preparing to invade, is I will talk about the god and why I took him, and I might briefly talk about the slave mage. I'll do that either this turn or next turn. So, the Last Unburned Australian is the Firstborn of the Star. Firstborn of the Star is a discounted rainbow chassis that you can use for relay. I would argue it's superior to base rainbow chassis, if only because it has a little more hit points, so it's a little more resilient. It's a little less vulnerable to like random assassinations, globals, random damage, seeking arrows, all sorts of stuff like that, so it's good to be a little bit tougher. Other than that, the chassis doesn't really matter. What it is it's a rainbow. What makes it unique? Nothing really important to you. The summoning skill you can ignore, the void sanity you can ignore. What's more important here is my build. So my build was Nature 5, Death 6, Astral 5, Fire 1. What on earth am I doing here? Well, first of all, let's see our bless now that we're awake. Morale 1, because it's a bless, MR 1, Penetration 1, Recuperation, Undead Regeneration. Perun, what are you doing, mate? Like, you don't have any undead sacred units. Okay. This bless does two things. It exists for two purposes. The first is you look at Penetration bonus 1 and Recuperation. What this means is that when you manufacture a Shroud of the Battle Saint for 3 Astral Gems, we're using a Hammer and an Astral Mage, and because they're Astral 1, you can freaking use a Star Child, so it only costs 9 research points in Lost Research in order to produce one of these things. You can stick a Shroud on an Astral Mage, so I've already manufactured a couple. Stick a Starshine Skullcap on this bloke, and then give him a Spell Focus and an Eye of the Void, and he has +4 penetration. +4 penetration means you can Mind Hunt really well. It significantly changes the odds. When we do our first Mind Hunts, I'll bring out the statistics and give you the breakdown of what the percentage chance of the hits are, but it allows you to Mind Hunt. Now, the negative downside of Mind Hunting is if you don't realize there's an Astral Mage in the province you're targeting, your mages can go feeble-minded, which loses them all their paths and makes them worthless. However, if they're already wearing the Battle Shroud, they're already getting the Bless, and if they're already getting the Bless, that means they're also getting Recuperation, and that's true Recuperation. Not Disease Healer equivalent, it's Healer equivalent, which means that eventually, and it does take a couple of turns, but eventually that mage will get his mind back. And he can go back to Mind Hunting, to being a Battle Mage, all sorts of things. So Recuperation makes Mind Hunting ultimately less risky, because what you're risking is not losing a mage permanently, it's losing a mage for a number of turns. And we will see that in action, I'm sure, later on in this game. The second thing you get is Undead Regeneration. Why the heck did I get Undead Regeneration? Well, Recuperation and Undead Regeneration are a bless for someone who is really, really greedy. Like, really greedy. Because what that means is that with my big Death God, I can climb, because I know Relay is a strong research nation. One of the great strengths of this nation is its research, and also its ability to turtle if it has to. And what I was thinking was, if I am forced to turtle, I need something that I'm going to be able to pull out later in the game that will let me break out of my turtle. You go to Conjuration 9, you'll see there is a Death 7 spell called Tartarean Gate. This is not news to most members of the Dominion community, but let's go through it quickly. Death 7, which means my Death 6 can cast it while holding a Skull Staff. Great. For 10 gems, you get access to the Tartareans. So all the gods that are previously lost in all the other Ascension Wars throughout time, for 10 gems you can summon them through. In many ways, these are incredible. They're usually Titan or Monster Chassis, so lots of HP, usually full slots or close to full slots on most of them. Tough, size 6, can't be trampled, and they have significant numbers of magic paths. The problem is they come through oftentimes not as commanders, which means you have to gift a reason them. That's fine, that's 30 gems for a Titan-sized chassis. Fine by that. The problem is they often come through with large numbers of afflictions, and particularly feeble-minded. The feeble-minded means you don't get access to their magic paths, which are incredible. They have access to all of the schools of magic, including blood, which I don't have access to. They can be useful combat casters, super combatants. They are some of the most useful and competent units in the game. I'm told by some people in the community that this spell used to be even more powerful than it is now. I don't know how that was the case, I don't know when that was the case, but it's pretty bloody good now. The problem is it's almost useless if you don't have a way to cure a few afflictions. And there are 2 ways you can do it. 3 for some nations. The first is if your nation has actual true healers, which my nation doesn't, and they can slowly heal them if you put them in the same province. The second thing is you can cast Gift of Health, which will cure them in relatively good order. The third thing is you can give them recuperation, and the only practical way I can think of to give them recuperation is to put the shrouds on them. The problem is if you put the shrouds on them to give them recuperation and heal them, you've then taken up their body slot because the item is cursed, and they now can't wear armor, which significantly reduces their survivability. So I wanted something that would improve their survivability, and by adding Undead Regeneration you add somewhere between 20 and 30 HP regen per turn to the chassis. If that chassis can then, say, wear a Ring of Regeneration to double that, that's basically immunity to most things that rely on dealing damage. What that means is that eventually, if I go to Conjuration 9, I can, using my god, summon Tartareans. I can then use my Naiads to give them Gift of Reason and make them commanders. I can put Shrouds on them, which heal them, and eventually I'm going to get, for about 34 gems, I'm going to get huge amounts of magic diversity, combat casters, super combatants, and everything you could wish for. It's a late game option, and I built my bless around it. The reason this is greedy is because I've invested in D6 and a D6 bless for something that only comes into effect at research level 9. And even then, you don't get the benefit immediately, you only get the benefit as you start to spend turns summoning these Tartareans out. So if I survive long enough, that'll be a really good bless that will pay off in a big way. But for right now, it's only going to be useful to help out my mind hunting. That said, now the god is awake, and I'm no longer paying the imprisoned tax. He can spread dominion, he can be useful in a whole bunch of ways. This one fire path lets him cast the fire, create the fire booster, which is fire death, which I wouldn't otherwise have access to. That will let me boost a flame spirit to F4, which can then make a helmet, which can get him to F5, which means I have access to Fire Kings. So just in general, across the board, this is about diversity, access, and a late game play. It's a super greedy pretender, and only time will tell if greedy was the right play. Catch you next time.